Today we're making a huge batch of tomato base sauce, and this sauce would do for many things. So what I normally do is make a big pan of it and freeze it and then bring it out for various things that I need. So it looks a lot of ingredients here. I've got mushrooms, peppers. I don't think I use all those onions, but I'll see when I'm going. 4 tins of tomatoes, garlic, smoked paprika. Now that's a really good ingredient for this because I want this to have a smoky taste. We're not big on chilli in this house, but with the smoked paprika in, it just gives it a nice hit of taste. Olive oil, in here is some sugar. Now basil, you can use marjoram if you're growing it in the garden, which I might do. Equally nice in taste. And I had some of this kale that I bought too much of and I froze, and it actually defrosts brilliantly. So I'm going to sneak some of that in as an extra veg, and obviously I don't know if I've said red peppers. So this quantity here is going to be huge, but it's going to do a lasagna, it's going to do a pizza, it's going to do almost like a spag bowl and a chilli. So this sauce is going to get all the mess out of the way in one go. I'll freeze it up, label it, and then I've got it again for future things. So I've got a whole punnet of mushrooms, a standard punnet of mushrooms, chopped very roughly, 2 red peppers. I used 4 Spanish onions in the end. Obviously the kale is still the same, a good few handfuls of kale. Open my tomatoes, and I'm just, because as you know, I tend to, if any of you watch these, I tend regularly use garlic granules, and my husband said, why do you do that? So I made him peel all the cloves, and now he knows. So in here is 4 garlic cloves. If you've got smoked garlic, that is fantastic, but we haven't, and we're just using what we've got at the moment. Obviously we need to have the sugar nearby. Now we're going to the hob. So this is going to make a rich, smoky tomato sauce. See you at the hob in a minute. So initially this is about 4 tablespoons, good tablespoons of olive oil. Now remember, we're doing a huge pot here of sauce, so you're going to need that much oil. Then I'm going to put in, this is caster sugar, a tablespoon. I know it's lumpy because it's been in a pottery pot. So unfortunately with pottery pots, that's 2 tablespoons. Yeah, your sugar gets a little bit lumpy, but I love them. So now the sugar just helps the sauce not to taste bitter. So just get that into the oil. Little bits. If you look on tomato sauce or any form of sauce, jar sauce, it's all loaded with sugar, so this is probably far less. We might have to add a little bit. Now what I always say to people is always go off taste, because your taste and my taste may differ. Bear with me a second. Right, smoked paprika. I'm going to put in a heaped tablespoon initially. I want to see, because things can change, like the sweetness of the peppers, the onions, it all can change from meal to, from dish to dish each time you do this. So you have to keep on top of, that smells absolutely fantastic. It's got like a smoky, delicious smell. Right, I've got this on like a mid-heat on gas. Now our 4 onions are going in. As you can see, I've just rough chopped them. I've not left massive pieces. What's happened? Oh yeah. Okay, so we want this oil to cover pretty much all the onions. Beautiful colour as well with the smoked paprika. Smoked paprika is brilliant if you ever have hummus and you do it with pita bread, toasted pita bread. Put a bit of smoked paprika over the top of that. Delicious. We sometimes put it on quiche. It goes on a lot of things now. You can buy it online and in most of your health food shops. I don't know if any of them are doing like social distance selling, but you can definitely get it delivered, that's for sure. I'm starting to see it come into regular shops now as well. So onions, now you want these onions to be translucent really, and it looks like a lot of ingredients, but this will all mush down. And remember, I want this to do sort of quite a few different dishes, and you always think you've done too much and then you've probably not done enough. So. Right, I'm going to carry on with that, leave that for a good 5 minutes, keep an eye on it, and I'll come back to you when this is clear. So 5 minutes on, I'm just giving this a good pepper blast. We do like pepper. So that's in. Next, peppers take a little bit longer to cook, so I'm going to put the peppers in. Don't worry if a few mushrooms go with it, it really doesn't matter. I'm just going to pop them in, because they're going in anyway soon. And this keeps the colour lovely. Now I'm not putting tomato puree in this, which a lot of people use. I have got it in the cupboard, but I think it adds like a really bitter taste. It's just a personal sort of preference. But if you want it more tomatoey, you can add it, but I don't think myself you need to. I've got a few biggish bits of pepper in there, but that will cook down. Now, I said to my hubby a minute ago, God, I hope I can get this all in the pan. It's going to be to the top, I think. Now, you can halve this and do it for 2 dishes, or quarter all these ingredients and just do it for the one. But I just feel sometimes we're at the cooker enough, so it's nice to get this out of the way in one go. May have to transfer this to a saucepan, but it's nice for you to be able to see it. So 5 minutes with the peppers in on their own, and the smell is delicious. And I keep saying that, but it's got a gorgeous smell. Right, okay, here we go. All our mushrooms, and this looks a lot, because it is a lot. Don't know how we're going to get all these tins of tomatoes in, but let's see. Now, you might notice I have a different pinny on today. I do go through a lot of pinnies because I'm so messy, and Davin ordered me I don't know if you can see it, a Gina's Tea Time pinny. So I'm wearing it because he got it for me.
Not because she likes it.
Yeah, so this is a slight change of pinny today. I'll probably end up with all this down it in a minute, because it's a good way of christening a pinny. We'll see how it washes. There we go. So we're getting to the top. Dun dun dun. Okay, so we've got our basil. Now I always put, you could put, if you're using dry herbs, put them in the oil beforehand. If you're using fresh herbs, I always tend to put them in last. Because otherwise the leaves, when you put them into the oil, they sort of go a bit brittle and crispy. So, there we go. Chopped tomatoes are probably a little bit easier, but this is what we've got. Oh yes, this pan's filling up now. It's a monster amount of sauce.
We don't do anything less than monster.
No, and the thing is, you know, we've got people in isolation at the moment, so we can drop some of this off as well, you know, at the door, and they can do what they want with it. So it's quite nice to share food, because if you're on your own, sometimes dishes like this are a bit of a pain in the neck actually, because you don't want to go through the hassle from family members that have said, you know, when they're on their own they don't want to be bothering with doing stuff like this. So sometimes if you put it in a little container, label it so they know what it is and leave it out for them, they can freeze it or use it straight away. If you're putting it into a container, make sure you put the date you made it, and make sure that it's cooled down before you put the lid on. And I'm teaching you to suck eggs, but it just helps. Now our curly kale. Now kale sometimes have these stalk bits in, which can be, see like that one there, I'm just going to take that out. And people are saying, oh, kale. Now, you
I'm
don't,
thinking.
you don't have to put this in. I'm putting this in because lots of you have children and need to get veg in. And this is a good way of doing it. And it doesn't really affect the taste. But by all means, leave it out. If you don't want to have, you know, if you're not keen on the idea. We'll see how this tastes. I don't normally put it in every batch. But kale's such a good...
It's full of iron, isn't
full
it?
of iron, yeah, it's a brilliant... It's best eaten raw, really. But we'll sneak that in there. So as you can see, we're right at the top, and this, I'll give you the measurements of the pan on the video because it is a huge pan, frying pan. This is one of the best things I've bought actually. It's not an expensive one. It's a non-stick. It doesn't doesn't crisp things up brilliantly, but it's good for things like this. Like I say, you could do this in a saucepan, that's fine. And I'm just going to rip the basil. I was going to use marjoram, but then I just thought most of you will have basil, or if you've got a herb, basil is probably the easiest one to get. And that smells beautiful as well. Look at the colour. And you see, people won't know there's kale in there because they think it's basil. Some of us have to be very sneaky. Oh, lovely. So I'm going to leave that on the heat now. Keep an eye on it, well, I have to, because this could, if it got too hot, it could easily overspill onto my hob. Not that it's going to make a lot of difference.
Hours of cleaning ahead.
Well, it's not that bad, but... And just gently break up. There's a little bit of a funny coloured plum tomato in there. It's probably because they're not really expensive ones, but, you know, it's only going into a sauce, that's fine. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of mushroom in there. If you were a veggie, with the amount of mushroom you have in there now, you know, you could easily have that on, or if you just didn't want to add mince later, you could have that on pasta. And there's enough denseness in the sauce to give you a little bit of something to get your teeth into. And I'm not going to blend this later. This is how it's going to be in my lasagna or on my pizza. Spag bowl type dish. What else did we say? Lasagna, pizza, spag bowl, and almost like a chilli. You can make a chilli out of this. You would have to add obviously chilli to this to make it a chilli, but if we do, we just use a very mild chilli. Right, we're 10 minutes on and I've had a taste and it definitely needs a bit more sugar. So that's three and a half tablespoons, I would say, we need in there. I'm also going to add some more smoked paprika, another tablespoon. Okay. I'm also going to add some more pepper. Remember, this is a massive quantity of sauce. Sorry. There we are. Pepper, and I'm also going to add some more salt. And it's best to let it get to further on, because remember, all the taste is going to come out of these as they're cooking. So you don't want to taste it initially, because you need to give all these lovely ingredients a chance to do their thing. Okay. So you can see the basil in there, you can see the kale, peppers, everything's cooking. I'll come back to you in a minute. Now at this point, we've all had a taste. My husband said it needs a bit more paprika. I think it doesn't. And remember, paprika, before you go ahead with this, it is a very definite taste. So if you're thinking, I really don't like it, leave the paprika out and use maybe a little bit more spice like oregano or basil, as you would a traditional sauce. So if you smell it and you think, yuck, you don't want to put it in here. But I think it's beautiful. It's smoky, this is a sweet sauce. So the sweetness really appeals to children as well as adults, because there's no bitterness in it. So I've used a whole one of those little pots you buy from the supermarket with basil. Now don't chuck your basil out. Sometimes it will regrow. Sometimes I put it out under a cold frame and it starts off again. Same with coriander this time of year, which is May. Well, May the 1st today. So I'm going to, so from start to finish, this is taken from all the prepping, cutting up the onions, cooking. We're on 35 minutes and you can see we're getting a lovely rich sauce. It still probably needs to boil down a tiny bit more liquid. And at this point, don't do like we just did and almost put it in a bowl that had the raw garlic in, because that won't give you the right taste. Get a little bowl, put a little bit onto it and have a taste and see what you want to add to it, because you have the power, because this is your sauce. So like I say, if smoked paprika isn't for you, then it's not a smoky sauce, but use maybe smoked garlic instead and other herbs. If you haven't got fresh basil, use dried basil, but remember to put it in at the beginning rather than at the end, because otherwise it's going to be prickly. People laugh when I say that, but it does have like a prickly texture. And you can see the kale is just disappearing into oblivion now, so it's a good way of sneaking stuff in. I have been known to put peas in this, all sorts of things, but today we've got kale in. So 40 minutes on, you can still see some of these bits of pepper have got a little bit, they're a little, not firm, but you know, you can feel them under your spoon. But remember, this is going to go into things like lasagna and other bits. So if this is going straight onto pasta, you want to cook those peppers down a little bit more. If it's going into a lasagna, then it's got the cooking in the oven to go already. And same with a chilli. Now with a chilli, if I was doing a chilli, when I take my chilli quantity out, I would just write on the bag, add kidney beans, or do it on a different ring at the same time. Add your kidney beans and your chilli, and then you're ready to go with sort of a traditional chilli. If you're going to do a spag bowl and you want it slightly different, you could always add a bit of Worcester sauce to it. That gives it a nice little bit of a taste. If you're going to do minced lasagna, you can add a couple of oxos to it. So you do, just treat this as your base. If you're doing pizza, you want to make sure that you have less liquid than this, because imagine that liquid going onto your pizza. So if it's going to be a pizza sauce, then you need it to be more, more reduced than this. So just, it's all common sense really. So this is, what should we call this? Smoky sweet paprika
sauce.
There we are.